Good afternoon, everybody. So we are live, and from what I can tell here, this is actually working, I think. Hold on one second. Oh, it's fetching the stream, so just a couple more minutes. You look lovely, by the way, Helen.
Thanks.
And then I'm going to hit go live. So here we are. Okay.
Oh, I read that. Thank you, Lisa. Oops, I got to grab that.
Okay.
Okay,
So
you can tell me if I need to adjust my microphone in any way.
it's sounding great. You're nice and loud and live on Facebook, and it's recording well. So good afternoon, everybody. In just a moment here, I'm going to turn it over to Helen Bond. She is going to be our presenter today, and I'm really looking forward to this. It's been absolutely wonderful that she was willing to do this. I hope everybody out there in quarantine land is safe and healthy and well and staying in your houses. So we have Helen Bond this afternoon. And so I am going to stop talking and set off to the side and let her start telling you some things. And what we're doing today is like a human library. Now, I did speak to the Human Library Organization, and they need to do an approval on these events. But because of the delays going on right now, I haven't received that in time for this posting. So we're calling it a life experience, is what we're calling it. And what it is, what would happen if you had a person in front of you that was like a live book that you could talk to and ask questions of? So that's what we're doing. So without any further ado, I'm turning it over to Helen.
Thank you. So I'm not sure, how do you want me to start this?
Well, where did you grow up, Helen?
Okay. So I was born in Washington, D.C. And shortly after I was born, we moved to Tehran, Iran. My birth father is from Iran. And so we moved there. And actually, my first language was Farsi, but I spoke to my mother in English. And so we lived there for maybe 3 years or 4 years before we moved back to the States. And so when we came back, I was again in the DC area, and then we moved around. My mother, she divorced and then remarried, and then my dad, he was an FBI agent. So we moved every few years due to the work that he did. And so we lived in Ohio, Boston, just moved around. And so by the time I left home, my family was living in Southern Ohio. And so I grew up originally in the city, but then later my family, they always wanted to be on a farm and be self-sufficient. And so we lived on a farm at the end. So probably from fifth grade on, I was like milking cows and goats and training horses, and just kind of was very fortunate. My parents had land connected to the forest, and so we had like free range. And then from there, I left and worked in DC. I don't know how much more. So I went to DC. I also worked for the FBI, and then eventually worked for Special Olympics and the Kennedy Foundation. And I worked for, well, I did a lot of work with Mrs. Shriver, so Eunice Kennedy Shriver. And I was kind of like a low level clerical position. So whenever she could not make something, they would send me with a tape recorder at that time. And I would go to meetings and record, conversations that were taking place that, were maybe about Vietnam or, events when her brother was president. And I would just basically bring that back And I then left that job and I started working in Southern California. And so for me, what was always a part of my life growing up as a child, we would play music in my family. We would always dance. I have two sisters, and we would always dance in the family room. So dancing was a big, important thing for me. And my mother told me when I was a child in Iran, before I went to bed, the family, I was the only, I was the first and, grandchild and the only one there for a while until my sister came along. But they would make a circle. The women at night would make a circle and sing, and then I would go in the middle and dance. And that was my nightly routine. So I grew up loving dance. And in the kitchen, when the women were cooking, they would take the lids off of the pots and play them like drums. And so that's probably my first connection to drums. So I moved eventually to Illinois. I'm just north of Chicago. And I was in the corporate world. And one of the things that really helped me out in the corporate world is that I had been using Mac computers for many years before Windows came. And so I was able to transition. I was in the IT department, and because of the knowledge I had when Windows came out, I was already ahead of the game. I knew how to use a mouse, and that kind of led me to, my job as a project manager. And so I worked for Baxter, and then eventually my director, he moved to the American Dental Association, and I transitioned with him. So when he went there, they had a project, and he said, we have to bring Helen Bond in for that project. And so at that time, when I worked with Baxter, I traveled a lot for work. And I did pick up a drum, and it was an event with my mother and father. My mother said there's this cool all night drumming for some solstice thing going on. Do you want to come home? And so I traveled a lot for work. So I went home. Um, and that's really my first introduction to drumming. Now,
How,
sorry, go ahead.
what year was that?
Oh my gosh. That has to have been like in the early 80s. So I want to say in the early 80s. Um, and actually, before that event where my mother had contacted me, I used to live in Florida, in Tampa, and we had moved here to Northern Illinois. And so I went to visit friends, and that's when I bought my first drum and a didgeridoo. So it was probably, I'm not even sure what year that would have been. And so then after that, my mother had mentioned hey, there, you have your drum, there's this event. And so I went to that with my parents. My mother had the time of her life. She stayed up all night drumming. I did go to bed. But then when I had this drum, I wanted to know more about it. And so I started, looking up research, trying to find out, learn more about it. And there wasn't a lot going on with it at that time.
Helen, we have a question.
Yes.
So Laura Gonzalez is watching, and she wanted to know, what did you do working in the Olympics? In which country?
No, it was a Special Olympics.
The Special Olympics.
Yeah, I worked for the Kennedy Foundation Special Olympics, and I worked at the headquarters in the main office. And so sometimes, for example, for Special Olympics, they had a special program where people raised money. And so the winners of those competitions would come to DC. And part of my role was I would pick them up, give them a tour of DC, and then go to the Capitol with them where they met Eunice Kennedy Shriver, and they would meet her, and then Mrs. Shriver and I would go back to the office in the taxi. And so I was kind of, it seemed like whenever there was some weird project, they would just say, okay, Helen, we need you to do this, and here's cab money, and go. And so I did a lot of things without without any experience, was very spontaneous with that.
Sounded like it would
So,
have been fun though.
oh, what was fun, I mean, I never knew what it was gonna be or, like, what hat, if you will, I would put on, and if I was, like, a tour guide, I would, like, quickly try to learn things to be able to give them information, and they had arranged the vehicle and everything, so it was a lot of fun, and, it was a great adventure, I'll say. So, while I was here in north of Chicago, I, would, travel the country by day, and then at night I would look for whatever drum scene there was in whatever state I was in. And so I remember, and I also would try to tag that on with my friends. So whenever, because I moved around a lot in the country, I had friends in many different cities. And so I would stay with friends, and then I would go out with my drum at night. And then in 2000, yeah, I think it was 2000, Famadou Konate came to the Chicago area, and I took a workshop with him, and that really changed everything for me. That's when I discovered the bass drums, the dunes, and then started having the idea of going to Guinea and studying the music and learning more about the culture. And so, really, I came to all of this with my love of dance. And if you think about it, when you dance, it's always like the beat of the drums. And so I would play around with that. And then the next piece of it for me, there were a lot of festivals or events. And so I would just travel around with my drum. And so well, I think it's now 21 years ago, I left the corporate life to do the drums full time. And so that was a big transition. And I think that's when, well, it was a big transition going from a corporate IT project manager salary to a full time musician salary. And then, working for myself and setting up gigs. And so, what I would say is that the corporate world really gave me a lot of tools that I still use today. And then also, because I was in IT and technology, whenever I had a gig, I love computers. I'm kind of a bit of a nerd, and I love learning things. And so I would put together my own flyers and information when I did a workshop. And that was unique because whenever someone brought me into their city, I could provide a consistent and all the information and flyers for them to promote the event.
Was it scary to go from I mean, I know you had all sorts of creative possibilities and you never knew what every day was, but to go from that secure corporate situation to this, you got to make it on your own music thing.
So I didn't get the last part, but I heard, was it scary? I think I was having too much fun to be scared. It was, I
Well,
mean, I met so many really amazing people, and there were things I loved about the corporate world, and then there were challenges in the corporate world, and you still have to deal with some of that when you obviously work for yourself, but I have a lot more freedom and have the final say in that, so that makes it helpful. And so what happened actually before I made the leap to do drumming full time is that people started hearing about me and contacting me. And because I didn't set out to teach, that wasn't my goal. I was just doing it for me. It felt good. I loved it. It was joyful. And I thought, oh my gosh, how can anyone not love this? It's so much fun. And I played with my family, which is really, I mean, that's amazing to be able to play with, your my sisters and my mother. So it was so much fun. And so what happened is some people heard about me and they were putting together a work retreat, and they brought me in for it. They asked if I would come to the event and lead a, drum circle. And at the time I was like, I don't know, I can come and have some fun like I usually do. And that really was the moment when it started for me to become also a living. And so after I started doing that, more people started contacting me. People wanted to study with me. And I discovered in the process of teaching people that I actually learned better myself. It reinforced, what I learned. And that was really my ultimate goal, is just for me to improve for myself. It was not a competition. It was just, it's kind of like, opening this amazing door and then all of a sudden getting all this amazing, mind blowing information. And so, as people came to me and I realized how much I had learned in the process, because when you teach people, you have to be able to express that information in multiple ways. And when I was in the corporate world, I did travel around the country teaching people how to use software and how to use their laptop. And so I learned that people learn differently. And so that information that I learned in that process is what helped me when I'm teaching people how to play the drums. And so from that piece of it, the teaching of it, it just kind of expanded. So I just had one person who would come to a studio at my home and I would go over classes until eventually I started having classes, and then was fortunate enough to get to the point where I found facilities that could, bring me in, like cultural centers and community centers that brought me in. Now, another big piece of this was just before I left the corporate world, my last year in the corporate world, I took time off from work to go to Guinea to study with Famadou Konate. And at the time, I had no vacation, and they said, well, we can't pay you while you're gone. And I was fine with that. I was very excited to go to Guinea to study the music. And so that was just an entirely different level of things. It just kind of blew up for me, because spending a month in Guinea and really focusing on the music and beginning to understand beyond the music where it comes from, the work in life, that when they're pounding the rice, that them pounding that with the pestle and the mortar is also creating a rhythm and people are singing. So it really helped me understand, I would say, another depth to it all. And so going to Guinea was really a big piece.
Did you find that when you went to Guinea, it brought you right back to where you had started with the dance as being part of it, because it was so connected to the movement and the motion?
Yeah, I think that, that is a good point because it shows that. And what I think is playing here, you have people who spontaneously dance. And that is also great feedback. I mean, that means you're playing something that people feel compelled to move to. But in Guinea, it was so interconnected, and on another level, the song. So it's the rhythm, the dance, and the song. And you really saw how it all came together. And then as you really go deeper into it, you start to see, well, it's a celebration for maybe a marriage or a baby's birth, the baptism, or it's a moment of working in the fields. And I think we can all say that any job you have to do, any physical work you have to do, it always goes by easier when you have music to do it to. And that really, for me, music was always a huge component in my life growing up. Both of my parents always played music. It was really important. And so that was just an immediate connection when I went there and I actually saw, my gosh, it is, it's like this thing that moves together and it's not separated.
Just
And
like back when you were a little girl and they took the pots and pans out.
exactly. Yeah. It just happened organically while they were working. And so I was really fortunate. And I have to say, going to Guinea, when I first went to Guinea, I didn't speak French, which, they were colonized by the French. So the language of business and politics is French. And so I went the first time, and I was very lucky to have a friend of mine, Elodie, who was from Paris, but she was living in Chicago at the time. We went together, and she really helped me in talking with people. But when you're playing the music, you don't really need words. They were their own word, if you will, their own way of communicating. And so that, after I came back from Guinea the first time, that's when I made the decision to leave the corporate world. I had already been teaching, I already had people coming to me, and I was able at that time to make that adjustment. And so then I went back a year later. I went back to Guinea, and before I'd gone, I tried taking some French classes. I wasn't able to complete it because of the timing of the classes, and I wasn't incredibly great at it, but a little bit goes a long way, and everyone was so kind and happy, that I was speaking. So I'll tell you one story when so I, don't eat, I'm more of a pescatarian. I'll eat seafood, but I don't eat chicken and beef and goat or any of that. And so when I was in Guinea the first time, as part of our trip, we were on an island, and there was a woman who cooked food. It was sauce with duck and rice. And they had brought the food for us. And my friends, from Guinea at the compound where we were living, who traveled with us, they kept telling me, Helen, Ellen, they called me Ellen, Eleni, Eleni. They were saying, eat, eat. You pick up a few French words. So they were saying, eat, eat. And I was like, oh, it's okay. I'm not hungry. Because I'm also aware that choosing what you eat is a luxury. Being able to make those choices of, I don't want to eat this or I don't want to have that. And so, and in the past, I have eaten the sauce and just gave the meat to someone else. And so I was just like, no, but I couldn't really explain to them. I wasn't really hungry and I didn't want it at that time. And so I was like, no, no. And they were like, what? They couldn't understand. So I just went, no, quack, quack. And they looked at me and they go, no, quack, quack. And I was like, no, quack, quack. Because I didn't know how to say duck in French. And so by the time we left the island and we got back to the compound, as I walked through the streets outside the compound, people would pass me and go, no, quack, quack. And that night it turned to like, no, moo, no, bark, 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 no. So before I left, everybody would pass me and say things like, no, quack, quack, no, bah. And so when I came home and I was teaching at that time, I was teaching at College of Lake County. And when you teach, you can also take courses. So I took a French course at that time. And I was very excited then when I wasn't able to complete the course, but one of my first words was, I have to know duck so I can say that right, canard. And so I was so excited I had that word. So as soon as I landed, and this was what was so beautiful, is that it was almost like a whole year had not gone by. Like as soon as I landed, it was like we all left, we all continued where we left off when I was in Guinea last. And I don't know if you want to show some pictures, too. So, and I know they're a little unorganized, but
okay,
so
we'll find some.
when they met me, we're all sitting around in the compound, and one of the guys said to me, no, quack, quack. And I said, no, wait, I have it. And I said, no, canard. And I said, "What do you call duck in your language?" And one of the guys looked at me. I said, "What do you call canard in your language?" And he said, "Duck." And so I was like, "No." I said, "No, in your language, not in your language." And they said, "Duck, ducky. It's true. We call it duck."
Call it a duck.
So I guess the moral is never underestimate what you already know.
What picture should I show, Helen?
So I have one with the little girl with the teddy bear. This was, I think, one of my first years in Guinea. She's at the very beginning when I sent you photos. And so
Let me see.
what I discovered was that as, um, lacking in material wealth that they were, their hearts were amazing. They were so generous and kind and accepting, and when I went back the second time, my horrible French that I was using, they were so gracious. Um, and their generosity, like if I went to a house, they would insist that I eat, but I'm very much aware that, if I eat with them, I'm eating part of the food they have for their family. And so I had to learn ways to return that generosity for them. So, yeah, there's a picture of one of the little girls I saw. She wanted to copy her mother with the teddy bear. So, you can go through and just pick out some pictures if you want, Colleen, and show them. You pick them. And so that really, I went the second time I went, I'd left the corporate world and I continued to go annually. And actually, the last 6 years, I've been going twice a year. And so this is one of our biosan and water not-for-profit organization works on. So after I went the first year, we said, I met, there's a picture of Amy and I.
Yep, I'll do
Amy's a
that.
friend of mine and my drumming buddy, and really like-minded sister. We do a lot together. I bounce a lot off of her, and we co-founded Benkadi Project, which in Malinke means to live together is very good. And then officially we made, there's Amy and I, officially I started Motherland Rhythm Community, which Benkadi Project is a component of, and that is a 501c3. We just recently, it's just about complete. We built a women's market in the village. We make biosand water filters, and I think you may have a couple pictures there with a lot of filters lined up. And so I basically did research. Amy had done some research and found information about the filters, and then I found a way that they could be made, and it's through the information is open source and on the internet, provided by an organization called CAWST, CAWST.org, out of Calgary. And the system was made in the 90s, this method, and instead of patenting it and owning that, they open sourced it. And so I read about the system, really never actually did it until I went to Guinea, and we started that project in 2013. We did a feasibility study to see if we could actually do it. And then in 2014, two of my Lake Forest students won the Davis Projects for Peace grant, which was a $10,000 grant. And then I raised an additional 7,500, and we were able to go to Guinea and deploy, teach people from the book. We had a miniature made. There was an artist out of Madison They did a great job. Uh, and they made a miniature for us, and here they are in full size. So we found a welder in Guinea who could understand the specs. And so one of those filters that is typically for a family of 10, it provides clean water for a family of 10. They say for more than 10 years, but the fact is they're known to last 30 years. And so we make those and we give them to families, and we find that people try to share it as well. So they can be used for water, for cooking water, for washing their dishes, um, for cleaning their clothes, also for watering their garden and giving to any animals, livestock. So one provides sufficient for a family of 10, and they can bathe with it. What we find is families don't always take the time to bathe with the filtered water. Some families do. But what we've done in our education is we teach them to at least bathe the children and babies because, they keep their eyes and mouths open. And so we started deploying these in 2014, and we're still doing it. And today I've calculated that we've provided clean water for more than 10,000 people. And it's probably significantly more than that when I study how people will share and use the system, and some families are larger. And so because they're not using it at its fullest capacity by bathing with the water for the entire family, they are able to stretch it and provide, they have clean water. And so what we found out, and we were actually interviewed on Worldview Global Activism, WBEZ in Chicago few years ago. And what we have found is families went from stomach ache, cramps, and diarrhea 2 to 3 times a week to none when they use our water filters.
I will go ahead and include a link to that interview uh,
Oh,
in,
okay.
in the information after this. But I have a question for you. So
Yeah.
you found these drums and this incredible music, and then you went to Guinea and you started learning how to do drumming, and then all of a sudden there's water filters and all these other things happening. What happened? This one trip to Guinea sounds like it literally changed your entire life. So what, that very first one, but then it became all these other things. How did it transfer from just drumming?
Yeah, it is interesting. I mean, that makes it sound quick. But it was a long process. It's been 20 years. But we started the first year I went to Guinea was 2000 and oh, it was 2001. Um, so we know Amy and I both knew like the importance of education, and that was actually the first project. We built a school in a village that we went to, so Sangbarala village. And so that we know is really important, and there are many studies out there about when you educate girls, how they educate their children. And so then over time people started, so we would do concerts with our band here in the US, and a portion of what we earned would go to the Benkadi Project Motherland Rhythm Community. And then people started hearing about it and donating. And so we really were very small. I think the first year we had $3,000. And wherever we go and wherever I teach, I always talk about it, because to me, to just play the drums without speaking of the culture is a disservice to the whole package. So we talk about everything whenever I do programs. And, I've met the most amazing people in the process. And what I've learned is that, the truth is that the majority of people actually care. They care what's going on globally, not just, in their own neighborhoods. And so because of that, we received donations, and we were able to, over the years, we built a school, we improved a canteen where the kids have their lunch, we improved a hospital, we dug wells in the village. but then the overriding issue that we saw beyond the rural area, but also in the urban area, is that, I would go to Guinea and drink bottled water, and it just killed me to sit there with friends and they couldn't drink that water. And so that's how we found the biosand water filters, in that search of, like, they really need clean water. Clean water will improve many things. And because they've had a reduction in illness, families are able to spend that additional money that they would have lost in illness. They've spent that on sending kids to school or improving, buying food, more food for the family. And so it had a direct impact. And it grew. Like, we didn't in the beginning, we were making them. One of my college students went with me. We were making them and begging people to come and get one, and they didn't know the water was dirty because it looked okay.
Right.
And at that time, they were filtering the water through jeans. They would cut the leg of a pair of jeans and then tie a knot, put sand in it, and then run water through it. And that's a little bit of the technology of the biosand water filter, but they would have to wash it every 3 days. So with our filters, they use 20 pounds of granite on the bottom, which prevents the sand from coming out. They're made out of concrete, and so they have 20 pounds of granite and 100 pounds of sand on top. And it's called a diffuser basket, but it's like a filter that goes on top. So you pour water in, it rains over the sand, and the pressure pushes, with the pressure as pouring water in, it pushes the water through a tube that's embedded in the concrete, and it comes out. And as they use the filter for 2 weeks, the water, it then starts to grow in the sand area at the top, a bacteria. And so when we first give a filter to a family, so like if I gave you one, Colleen, and your family right now was just drinking whatever water you got from the river, immediately the water was 70% cleaner. And when this bacteria grows, the water then becomes 98.9%, which is our level of
Wow.
potable water. And so that was huge. And we're still teaching, we're still deploying.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it really is. And we were fortunate enough to, a couple years ago, we received a grant. We started out, we needed a car because we were carrying these filters in a wheelbarrow, and they weigh, the filter, the actual concrete filter weighs 180 pounds. And then you have another 100 of sand and 20 of the granite. So
Wow.
they're quite heavy, and we were really struggling. It was quite a workout. And I was worried because it was also dangerous. If it fell over, it could hurt somebody. And so we won a $85,000 grant, and it just made things unbelievable for us. We were able to take it to a different level. And it was really the beginning from the Projects for Peace grant. And then before that, just what we would get from people who were kind enough to donate. I have some people who've been donating from the beginning. They just do a monthly donation. Their families have been giving us money for 20 years almost.
That's
I think,
fabulous.
yeah, it really is amazing. And so last year we won a $400,000 grant. And the thing I've learned is we always have a lot of needs, but we have been able, that's why we can say now that, we're at over 10,000 people have access to clean water.
Amazing. I want to share a map. Just in case anybody is on watching this that doesn't know where Guinea is, I want to share a little map so that they can see. It is on the west coast of Africa, and you can
Oh,
see
yeah.
where it's located there. And then here's a little closer up. And I know that I've heard you mention Conakry.
Yeah, I'm on so our base is in Cemetery is the name of it, which in French it means cement. So it's really convenient for us because there are a lot of building supplies where we live. Um, and So we're just outside of Conakry, but if you look at where like the N in Guinea is, we travel into that area and it's quite a rigorous trip because the roads are horrific. But we also have made some filters. We've had a like a little pilot program. We have some filters in the small village where we built the school, but we're also in another area outside of Conakry, Dubreka. We have that's our second production site, and so we've deployed and they've expanded because people hear about it and they show up from great distances. I had a man once who came with a wheelbarrow. He was going to wheel the filter home and it was more than 3 miles. And,
Wow.
and so we do use our vehicle when we can to help get the filters to their homes. But that's probably like the biggest challenge in Guinea is transportation and getting around. And so we're fortunate that with the support through money we've raised and the grant that we were able to purchase a vehicle over there as well. We still have some vehicle needs, but that's something that's not easily dealt with in Guinea. So why don't you show some of the
Interested, I wanted to say, if people are interested and they follow your Facebook page, Helen oftentimes puts up some of the most exciting driving and bridge and vehicle packing videos you have ever seen. You can't imagine how much stuff one group of people can get on one vehicle and then somehow take it across the river that seems to have only two by 12s to get there on. So this is definitely something, if you're enjoying this story and you're learning about something and this incredible project she has going, if you'd like to see more, she definitely puts up a lot of photos and videos after she's been there, and some of the travel ones are quite exciting.
yeah, you can feel free to friend me to take a look, and you can friend me and look at past videos and photos. Um, it is, I think you can get a feel for the generosity and the hospitality that people demonstrate. And so I came back from Guinea this past trip just January 22nd. So and I was hoping to go back there this summer, but I'm not sure what's going to happen with everything else that's going on. So what I wanted to do, maybe you can show some of the pictures with dancing or music so you can kind of see. And so for me, for both Amy and I, the fact that we're able to give back to, oh yeah, these are some kids hanging out in mango trees. And so, yeah, you can just go through a couple pictures. And also, I teach West African drumming. I teach at Lake Forest College. I've been teaching there. I think it's over 10 years now. And I'm really fortunate. My class is it's required for a music education degree. So that's incredible and really a big thank you I can give to, the Lake Forest College and the music department. I also have a chamber group at the college. So these are students who want to study more intensively. So I have 2 classes in the evening there, which now we're doing over Zoom. And I also teach at the Adler Center in Libertyville, the Gorton Community Center in Lake Forest, and also in Grays Lake at the Heritage Center. And those classes are through me. People contact me. And so I have some people in the Grays Lake area who've been studying at those Grays Lake classes, but they're from different areas and they've been studying with me, some of them for as long as 15 years. So Colleen, maybe you can show a yeah, there. So another project, there's one of our first biosand water filters. In the beginning, we painted them. We don't paint them now. Now individuals can paint it themselves if they want. But this was our first deployment at a coffee shop. And when we put it in, I told everyone, I will drink the water in 2 weeks. And yeah, and that's the woman selling peanuts. And another project we have is a universal nutsheller, which it's made out of concrete as well. Well, it's cement and sand, and you turn it and it will shell peanuts, which they normally have to do by hand. And so we're still working on that project. We've had some challenges with the quality of cement that we're able to get. So we're still trying to iron out some issues on that, but we have successfully made those. And then you can just show any, yeah, and the kids. So behind those kids, that's actually the beginning of the women's market, which we built. And so kids, once your camera comes out, they love to pose and have their picture taken. And so it's a lot of fun. When I'm in the village, we always joke, I'm like Pigpen. When I walk, I have a cloud around me because of all the kids that are walking with me. And this is great. And what's really amazing is because I've been going to Guinea for so long, some of the kids that I knew, like at this age, are actually, in their 20s, late 20s, and are working on our projects. And so part of our project, we give, for example, the filter, the families receive them for free. They just have to come and work, help us sift. We have to sift sand and wash it when it's used inside of the filter. And then we pay women to cook meals for us. And so that's a source of income. And then we have a crew that we consider our staff. And this is at a market. This is the beautiful fabrics that they have. And so one of the things usually when I go there, each trip, like with the staff and the women who cook, we go to the market and I usually gift them with fabric that's highly coveted. So I don't, Colleen, are there any more questions? That is red palm oil. And so she's measuring out palm oil, which we buy 20 liters of to prepare our meals. So we also buy quality when we're buying for a staff. We buy local rice and we buy red palm oil. So they have a quality oil that they're using as well. So I know I have some pictures up there that are of classes. So here I had been teaching at schools. This is a beautiful picture. It's a wedding celebration, and she has the most amazing head wrap on. And so the drummers are playing for these parties. So some of the rhythms, when I go, I also want to study the music. And so I'm recording all of that. And this is a program I did through a university.
I don't know if I'm getting these in a good order or not, Helen.
I think they're fine.
Okay, good.
Just show whatever you want and I'll talk about them.
Okay.
Does anyone have any questions or want to know an area maybe I haven't hit yet?
Let's see if there's any more questions.
These are grains and rices that are sold in the market. The other piece I would say, what I think really speaks to us in this music for people who study it and play it is that when we're together, there's nothing else going on in our heads. I mean, we are completely focused on this music. So it's really present and mindful. And I think that's why I love it so much, because nothing else matters except what we're all doing together. And here's one of our water filters we delivered. And this man is a teacher. And so those are some of his students.
Okay, I think I found something good, Helen. Let's see here. I got them.
And those are mangoes at the top of that picture, which are amazing. We don't know what mangoes are because the mangoes in Guinea are incredible. They have a mango as big as your head.
So
Okay,
what do we
yeah,
got here?
that's great. I'll explain that. So that is that's from last summer. It's a fishing festival. And so those women are carrying gourds and the you can see it's actually wood that's bent and they have a net. So when the dry season, at the end of the dry season, just before the rainy season happens, they'll tell everyone no one can go fishing in lakes because they're getting to their highest dry point. So for a while, no one's allowed to fish in them. And then they have this like big celebration where it is a day to go fishing. It's called the Dalamo. And so what they do is they have either gourds or plastic buckets and they jump that water you see there. They jump in there and everybody jumps in and grabs fish. And so no one person can go there ahead of time. It's kind of like a community equal opportunity for catching a fish. And so that picture, I was on this side of the river and I saw them dancing. On the other side, the drummers were playing for them. They were singing and dancing. And it was before they would come to the edge of the river to jump in. And those are some of the fish that they caught. Those, I believe, are catfish. And yeah, and it's quite a party. I guess you could say it's almost like Taste of Chicago, but you got to work for it. There are people who sell little, I call them popsicles, but they make a mix of pineapple and ginger, and then they freeze it. Someone might have a freezer or they have a generator. They freeze it overnight and then they sell it at these events. So people sell sandwiches. And right now you're seeing everybody, I think they're clustered fishing. I'm sorry, dancing before the fishing piece, or they've come out. So when someone catches a big fish, they scream and everybody runs over there to look at it and see what they caught. Yeah, and that is a mask in one of the villages that we went to for this. So a lot of masks come out and people are celebrating overall, everybody. It's really an exciting time to be there. It's a lot of fun. So the Dalamo actually would be starting in probably the first part of June this year. And so after after the Dalamo, after the fishing festival piece of it, then everyone, they start to work on the fields because they're going to start to do plantings because rain's coming down. So it's an important time in the village area for everyone to start, tilling the land. And so, oh, I forgot to put a picture in there, but I have some where they actually use cows and the cows are working to till the land. It's amazing to watch. And I mean, it's a lot of hard work. And so everything is done with your hands. But what I think is interesting, because I love the music, is that this music is created from all the work in daily life. So this is at our city house that we have in Cemetery, and these are some of the local kids. So if you thought of it, they're more city kids, but I've known them for many years and we usually play games together. We play Uno a lot and I've taken over a lot of different games. And they told me that they think Twister is a racket. It's like where I'm just trying to work them too hard. This is this is Sally, for one of our drummer friends. I've known Sally since he was maybe 7 or 8. And so he is one of our very key workers for our project. And this is Mamadou, who also plays a drum. He's our driver when we go to the village. I love Mamadou. He's the kind of person you want to have around for a party. If you're having a party or doing something fun, you want him with you. And this is Isa. He's like, I don't know, he might be 21 now. And he's been learning to play the drums with us during our drum classes. And so people do come with me. So I go there and I do work for Benkari, Motherland, Rhythm Communities work, working on filters or other projects that we have going on, like the women's market. Um, and then I also have the opportunity for people who want to join me, and they can come as a service trip or they can come to learn to play drums and take drum classes. And they can learn how to, how they cook and head wraps. And this is a very important person for us. This is Fode Kamara. He is our project manager for Motherland Rhythm Community Benkari project. He is really the manager of our biosand water filter work. He also is the host, at the house, at our main house. And we do have a couple buildings we were able to build because of the grant we have. So everyone has housing. And so Fode has been coming to the US for 12 years, teaching in schools with me. That's great. And that area, it's under construction, but today it's all completed. So it's very exciting to see that. This is the Niger River. And so when we travel to the village of Sangbarala, this is our stopping point where we have to catch that boat that you see in the picture to cross the river. And Colleen mentioned some of the tricky transport methods. They told me one year, oh, we have a ferry now. And I was stunned.
Terrifying. It was terrifying looking. Yeah.
Well, it was basically two of those dugout boats, those boats that are put together. Then they have wood across the two to hold them together, and there is a motor on it, and we drive our pickup truck on top of it.
Yeah, it was. I saw the pictures, and I think I would have considered swimming.
Well, yeah, swimming.
Yeah.
There is a time where you can swim. I do swim there, but when the rainy season gets going, they don't want us swimming because they actually get hippos and crocodiles in that area.
Yeah, and then you got that.
Yeah, right. I think I had posted a picture on Facebook and of us on the pickup truck on the ferry, and a friend of mine had circled areas and said crocodile, crocodile, crocodile.
Yeah, I remember seeing that picture.
This is a downtown Carusa from the village, and what they're doing in that vehicle, their Guinea is in the FIFA soccer games, and they were showing team spirit for Guinea and driving around. Everybody was yelling. And so they have the outfits, their colors on that as well. Oh, and this is the food, because people always ask me about the food.
Yep.
So when I go there, I eat like they do. So typically a family will have a baguette in the morning. They might, if they have the money, they might have sardines, or they use just like mayonnaise as you would butter. So they just get a baguette with mayonnaise on it. But this is one of my favorite dishes to have there. And so that's rice. It has red palm oil. There might be a little dried fish, but not much in there. And it's also with okra and eggplant and hot peppers.
It looks delicious.
It is fantastic. It's like, I want that now. I want to eat that now. It's so good. And again, we eat a lot of rice. So probably daily we have rice. But when people come with me for like a workshop, we do have things like, fries and then maybe grilled fish. We do eat a lot of fish. But in the village, they do have beef. And so this was when we were working on the market. And so now, so an amazing thing happened for me, which is last summer, the chief of the village told me I must pick out some land and build my own house there because I've been going there for so long. And so we did get a piece of land, and I did build a house there. So now when people come, we all stay at my house, and no one stays at the house except I've told, the our crew that we like live with, I told them they can go there if they want. But so we came to my house for the first time this past January when we went to the village, and they walked us from our arrival across the Niger River that you saw earlier. The village came out, it was dark. They kept telling me, don't get there, don't come when it's dark. But to be honest, the trip is like 17 hours. We can't avoid it. And so these are photos from a dance party they did at my house. So once we arrived, then people kept coming. They brought us chickens and rice and what else? I had a big thing of shallots and peanuts and bananas. And my favorite gift was a huge bowl of lettuce. And so they're dancing. These are young girls. They dance with the gourd and move their shoulders while they're dancing. It's so much fun to watch them. And there's a little girl in front. She always insisted to being in every dance and being right in front.
I have a better picture of her. I'm gonna pull her.
Oh yeah, I have some great shots of her. She's so cute. Yeah, so it's funny because I have been going to that particular village for so long. Um, they all know of me. This was from the Dalamo, the fishing festival in Baro. So what they do is they wear that special plant with the leaves. Everybody makes a hat, and it's for good luck. So it's either like good luck, success in business. They say prosperity. They've also said if a woman's looking for a good man or a man is looking for a good woman, that is the time. And so when I go there, there's a lot of picture taking. A lot of people come up when I get their pictures taken.
Like oh crowd. These are your little dust creators.
Yeah, this is funny. This is really funny. So this is a village I'd never been to before, and so it was just me with my friends. So everyone else was Guinean, and I was the only foreigner. And so in the village, they're not accustomed to foreigners being there. And so I was waiting for a party to start. So I sat down, and then all these kids, I mean, that isn't even 1/4 of the crowd. I mean, it was a huge crowd. And one of the guys, Salif, the drummer you saw earlier, he was with me, and he turned to me and he goes, I got to get out of here. It's so hot from all their bodies, and no wind could get through because I was sitting and they were blocking the wind. It was like I was in a heat lodge. It was so hot from them. And he's like, I'm out of here. I can't take this. And so it was kind of funny because then if I went after the guys who were with me, then the kids all followed me and they were all trying to escape. And so this is where I was talking about where I can be like Pigpen if I'm moving because the ground is very dusty. But so what I did get them to do is at least sit down, and then I would talk to them, and they're always surprised because I can speak some of the local language, and they're always shocked when they hear me talk. So these are the drummers. These are many of my friends, and some I knew as like 3-year-olds, and now they're, the main artist playing. So this was at a party at the Oh, okay, I remember. This is a neighboring village. They don't have drummers, so the drummers from the village where I stay went to that village.
Is this the one that you had the picture of all the drums y'all were hauling with you?
It might be this. Oh, yeah, it might be. This is actually at my house. So you can see our vehicle in the background. But this was part of the welcoming celebration. We had days of parties at my house, people welcoming us and kind of like a congratulations. And it was my 20-year anniversary of going to Guinea. So it was incredibly, I don't know how they did it. It was incredible that it all happened. I do have a channel on YouTube called Medusa Drums, and you can go there. If you look for that channel, you'll find some of the videos I've taken posted there. So these are, as a part of the market that we built, these are women who sweep the litter out of the village. They clean it, and so they're carrying their brooms. And we purchased supplies for them because they didn't have any. They had to pick up the trash with their hands, and so we bought gloves, serious big gloves and boots for them, and we bought rakes and a lot of tools, and I bought a it's like a motorcycle but a wagon for them to use. And so I purchased that fabric that they're wearing, and they all wanted to, they came and said they wanted to dance for us, and it's traditional to have matching outfits, which I love, because in our culture, if you buy a dress and you go to a party and you see someone else with the same dress, people aren't usually happy about that. And in their culture, they love it. Like, we're all wearing the same dress. It's the same fabric, but they also put their own style in it. So they could be completely different design.
This is one of my favorite pictures working with seniors for so many years. I just love these three ladies, boy.
Oh, yeah. And I'm sorry the picture is blurry. I had a defect in my iPhone, and the Apple actually replaced it for free, but it's a little blurry. But that's what's so special about this picture, is that these are the seniors. So there are many organizations in the village. You have the chief of the village, and then you also have the women. So the male organization and the female, and this is the female chief of the village organization. These are the wise women. And the hairstyle they're wearing, that is a very old tradition to wear your hair that way, and uncommon to see it. You rarely see it. I was surprised so many women wore it. I think I've only seen it a couple times over the 20 years I've been going there.
Yeah,
And
I
so
would.
this was a great honor. And so the drummers had to go, because my house, where it's located, it's in there's like a really busy downtown of the village where it's more densely populated, and I'm kind of on the outskirts, but there's still many homes further up the hill, but I'm the last house in that area, so behind my house is nothing but bush. And so the drummers, my friends, who were staying with us, we're all living at the same house, they were like, we got to go because the women, the older women leaders want us to play drums while they walk up to your house. And so they left, and we waited the longest time. And when they got to the house, I said to my friend who teaches Nansidi Keita, I said, oh, it took a long time. And he looked at me, he sighed. He goes, they don't walk very fast. And then he showed me, we were like shuffling the whole way out here.
I bet. I
But it
bet.
was it was amazing, and they danced, and they brought us, I think they actually were the ones who brought us a big tray of shallots, bananas, peanuts, and a chicken.
Nice.
Yeah, it was really, yeah, we received a lot of gifts. And this is the strong man.
Yeah, well, you have two pictures of strongmen doing some of the dances. So I was
Yeah.
going to show those. This gentleman, and then there's another gent here.
Yeah, that's very traditional, and they're not just dancers, just like the older women. They are not just dancer, or they're not just coming up. They're actually organizers of things. So these strong men, this is a great picture.
It is.
These strong men, they are the ones who did a lot of the organization of the work for the market. So any physical labor. And at the point where if they're tired or they don't feel like working, then the group changes. And then the group that they're number one and the group that was two then becomes number one. And so this group, they have been the strong men, I think for this year, I think it might be 7 years, which is pretty
Wow.
amazing. Yeah, and it's traditional. Those pants are very traditional, and it's tradition to not wear a shirt. And usually a woman will tie her head wrap around the man's waist. So it could be the mother could do it for her son, the wife could do it, the daughter could do it. So you may see some men that have a lot of head wraps around their waist. And you can't see it. You can kind of see that's a whip in front. And so the man you're looking at in the white pants, in his left hand, he has a whip, and in his right hand is an axe. And he dances with the axe on his shoulder. And then the whip, the hand with the whip is out straight. And so the axe is just for decoration. They don't use it for anything. And this is a mask dance, and this is actually a young girl who's doing the dance. But I think it's really beautiful and cool looking.
It is.
Yeah, it's amazing. Even for the man who's carrying her, that's not an easy job because she's wiggling. I mean, she's moving up there.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's all the pictures that I have.
Yeah, I think there might be some pictures of the college, Lake Forest College, and some of the local people here playing, just kind of showing some of the other things that I do. So,
Let me get over there. So I wanted to check and see if anybody has any more questions. I don't see any. Does anybody have any questions that you'd like to ask Helen while we have her here and have her undivided attention and she's sharing all these awesome things with us? So what is your Facebook page, Helen, for your organization?
so I have actually have 4 Facebook pages. So one would be for the organization Motherland Rhythm Communities Benkati Project. It sounds long, but once you type in Motherland Rhythm, it should come up.
And I'll include the links for all of these in the comments after our presentation here, along
Okay.
with a wonderful video that Helen shared years ago that shows the rhythm and how it actually connects to life. Rhythm, the music is the rhythm, and life is
Yeah,
the rhythm.
I
That's
can send you to the link. That's a video on YouTube, and I know the people in the video. I didn't do the recording, but it's really amazing. It's called Fully Rhythm, and it's about
wonderful.
not quite 10 minutes. So yeah, I'll send you a link for that. And then you can remind people of my YouTube channel. There are just a few videos that they can look at. And then so I have also Medusa's musical, it's called Medusa Drums Facebook page. And that shows a lot of the kids. Oh, I know. You probably have some of those children.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you should show those. They're fun to look at. I should have included the one where they were looking in the drum.
There we go. All the little ones playing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so we go to different schools and different programs over the summer. They have they're really amazing. It's amazing to watch them play. So I have just a couple pictures like that.
I'm having some delays on my end.
Oh, no problem. Well, thank you so much for having me.
And
It's
thank you for coming, Helen. This has been wonderful. I'm going to include links under your whole presentation. If anything that you've seen today makes you want to donate some funds or in some way volunteer or assist with the Motherland Rhythm Project, that would be fabulous. I will include a link there. And Helen's website and Facebook pages have all the information you'd need to make a donation to the projects that they've got going on, the teaching. There's just so many things that this program is doing. And oh, and I have to share this one because this is Fode and this is just one of the best pictures ever. He's got everybody dancing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, this is great. So they're doing the strongman dance. Instead of a whip, we have a ribbon.
Nice, nice.
Yeah, it was really, it's really so much fun. I think that I've noticed, in particular with children, like when you play the drums, even babies, they want to be close, they are impacted by it. It's pretty incredible, the power of it. I think also I've been doing some drum classes online, and even though we don't get to be together, just being able to share space and play, which I know you've seen with your classes, your chair yoga, and other programs that you offer, Colleen. People need to remain connected. And we're very fortunate to have this technology available for us to do it. There is one thing you asked me earlier, and you talked about it. It started as just going to learn some drumming, and it grew so big until we were actually working on it. I have a not-for-profit organization, and fortunately, I feel honored that people are willing to help us do the work that we do by funding us. Um, it really is still taking the skill set that I had from my corporate life, being able to apply it in my current life here, but really through the kindness and generosity. And Colleen, it's just doors just open, and that's why I start with one thing, and then next thing I know, I've gone another direction, and it still fits, and the next thing you know, another one. So I'm basically following, with what I feel and what opportunities are there. And so I think we all have that capacity. So it's just always go with what you love.
That's absolutely amazing message. So I have also, with all the years that I've worked with seniors, Helen has come and done drumming circles and drum presentations and all sorts of programming with the seniors here in the Chicago area. And we will absolutely be doing an online drum circle for seniors through Beyond Bingo at some point in time in the next couple of weeks. We will figure out how to get on there and at least share a video so that you all can drum with Helen. And it's a wonderful thing. We've taken the drumming into assisted living communities, low income assisted living communities in the Chicago area, memory care communities, and the response is always the same. There's these incredible smiles and just laughter and fun. One of the communities was positive that Fode needed a wife, and they were happy to start looking. There were 3 or 4 ladies that were positive they could find him a wife. If he was just here long enough, they could take care of that. And
Rats, he missed that.
and one of the there's a community in Elk Grove Village, Lexian Villagers of Elk Grove, that had a project many years ago called Caring and Sharing. And after drumming with Helen and Fode for a session, they actually made the Benkati Project and Motherland Rhythm their focus for a fundraiser that year. And they purchased one of the drums from Guinea that the gentleman had made, and they have it at their community now. And it is, whoever is the important drummer in their drumming and rhythm circles gets to have the big drum that they got from Helen and Fode. So this is just, my experience with Helen began as somebody dancing to her amazing drum beats. And
Yeah.
yeah, she tires us out, boy. She keeps us going.
Well, the dancing inspires us. So without the dancing, we just be like going along. And then when the dancing happens, yeah, it's so
So keep your eyes out for all the links that I will share on Beyond Bingo's page so that you can connect with Helen and the amazing work that she's doing and all of the projects. I would like to extend to you and everyone, I don't know if you are up to date on what's happening in those villages now with the coronavirus coming. Uh,
So I have, people have been calling me. They keep in touch with Facebook's Messenger. It's been incredible because when I first went to Guinea, I would like disappear, not be able to call family. And now I can like Skype, you know, and keep in touch. And so they've been in contact with me. Yesterday, their president told them all churches and mosques will be closed, no large gatherings. So they had one case that came into the country from Belgium. And so they've seen and they're hearing everything that's going on here. And they're terrified because they say if we're having a problem here, that really scares them because the problem can become even worse for them. So at this point, they're having social distancing, which is really hard for me to fathom them doing that. And it will be very challenging for them cultural wise. So they don't, so that really is, all we know about it. We don't know if, the climate will have any impact because they're getting to the tail end of the dry season, so it's really hot. And then the rainy season will be coming. So right now they're very aware of what's going on. The president put those rules out, and right now they're listening to the news and paying attention to what's happening here.
Well, please send all of our best wishes to all of your families and friends there that you do things with, and just as to everybody else who's listening today, I think we're going to wrap it up for today. So would you anything else you want to say before we close it up for the day, Helen?
No, thanks so much, everybody. Stay connected and stay safe. And I'll hope to see you in person down the road.
Sounds wonderful.
All
Thank you
right.
everybody for joining us. I hope you've enjoyed this. I will share all the links so that you can listen to the interviews and some of Helen's drumming and see the great Foley rhythm video
Oh, yeah.
and then keep up on her travel videos and pictures that she posts with the crocodiles pointed out and the wonderful little boat and the packed vehicles and all those things because it's really quite wonderful. Thank you again, Helen. Have a wonderful day, and I look forward to talking to you real soon.
I do too. Take care. Bye bye.